In the vast, unforgiving expanse of the galaxy, where stars burned like distant promises and black voids swallowed whole worlds, Kai Harlan had always been a man who chased the thrill of the unknown. He was no stranger to the edges of space, piloting his battered freighter through asteroid fields and wormholes that would make seasoned captains blanch. But nothing could have prepared him for the storm that hurled his ship into the orbit of Zerathia, a shimmering jewel of a planet ruled by ethereal beings who viewed humans as little more than curiosities, or worse, commodities. Kai's vessel, the Starhawk, groaned under the assault of electromagnetic pulses as it plummeted through the atmosphere. Alarms blared in the cockpit, red lights flashing like angry eyes. "Come on, girl, hold together," he muttered through gritted teeth, his hands flying over the controls. The planet below was a swirl of iridescent clouds and towering spires that pierced the sky like needles. Zerathia wasn't on any human charts. It was a myth whispered in spacer bars. A world where aliens with skin like polished marble and ears that tapered into delicate points held sway over ancient technologies. The crash landing was brutal. The Starhawk skidded across a frozen tundra, carving a scar into the ice before coming to a shuddering halt against a cluster of jagged rocks. Kai emerged from the wreckage, bruised but alive, his survival suit torn at the seams. The air was crisp, laced with the scent of ozone and something floral, almost intoxicating. He scanned the horizon with his visor, picking up faint energy signatures in the distance, a city, perhaps, or a settlement, with no other choice. He shouldered his pack and trudged forward, the snow crunching under his boots like brittle bones. Hours blurred into a haze of cold and exhaustion. Kai's thoughts drifted to Earth, to the life he'd left behind, a string of failed relationships, a job hauling cargo that paid just enough to keep flying. He was 32, with a jawline sharpened by years of zero-grav living and eyes that held the weary spark of someone who'd seen too many stars go supernova. But here, on this alien world, he felt alive in a way he hadn't in years. Danger had a way of sharpening the senses. As night fell, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold, Kai stumbled upon the outskirts of a sprawling market. The air hummed with alien chatter, a symphony of clicks, hums, and melodic tones that his translator implant struggled to parse. Stalls lined the pathways, selling everything from glowing crystals that pulsed with inner light to vials of liquid that shifted colors like living rainbows. But it was the central auction platform that drew his eye, a raised dais surrounded by holographic barriers, where beings of all shapes and sizes gathered to bid on. Livestock? No, not livestock. Sentient beings. Kai's stomach twisted as he pushed through the crowd, his human stature drawing curious glances. The aliens here were elegant, almost elf-like, with pale skin that shimmered under the market lights and ears that flicked like those of mythical creatures from old Earth tales. They wore flowing robes embroidered with stardust threads, their movements graceful and unhurried. But beneath the beauty lurked something darker. In the cages on the platform, chained figures huddled, some defiant, others broken, and then he saw her. She was unlike any being he'd encountered. Her skin was a flawless alabaster, glowing faintly as if lit from within. Long white hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall of silk, tangled but still mesmerizing. Her ears tapered to delicate points, small and endearing, framing a face that could launch 1,000 ships or break 1,000 hearts. She knelt in her cage, her body clad in scant metallic bands that barely concealed her curvaceous form, bruises marring her knees and wrists where the restraints bit into her flesh. Her violet eyes, wide and pleading, locked onto his from across the platform. Sold for parts, human, a gravelly voice announced from the auctioneer, a burly alien with tentacles for arms. This Zerathian female, non-compliant, too spirited for training. Clearance for disassembly or other uses. Bidding starts at 500 lumens. The crowd murmured, some laughing, others bidding lazily. Kai's blood boiled. Disassembly, she wasn't a machine, she was alive, vibrant, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. He didn't know her name, didn't know her story, but in that moment, something primal stirred in him, a human instinct to protect, to defy the odds. HFY, they called it back home, humanity, fuck yeah. The stories spacers told of humans turning the tide against cosmic horrors, of being the underdogs who rose to heroism. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the din. "I'll take her, 600 lumens." The words tumbled out before he could think. He had no lumens, Zerathian currency, but his pack held trade goods, Earth tech, rare minerals from asteroid hauls. The auctioneer eyed him suspiciously, but greed won out. After a tense negotiation, involving a hasty barter of his plasma cutter and a few data chips, the deal was struck. The cage door hissed open, and she flinched as the restraints fell away. She didn't speak at first, just stared at him with those piercing eyes. "Human, hold me, use me, just get me out of here," she whispered, her voice a melodic whisper that sent shivers down his spine. Her name, she told him as he draped his jacket over her shoulders, was Lyra. Kai guided her away from the market, his arm around her waist to steady her barefoot steps on the icy ground. The crowd parted, whispering about the bold human who'd bought a defective Zerathian. Little did they know, this was just the beginning, as they vanished into the shadows of the tundra. Kai felt the weight of her lean against him, not out of weakness, but perhaps the first flicker of trust. The stars above twinkled like conspirators, and in the distance, the ruins of his ship beckoned, but with Lyra by his side. The cold night felt a little less lonely, a little more charged with possibility. They trekked through the snow, the wind howling like a beast denied its prey. Lyra's presence was intoxicating, her scent, a mix of wildflowers and stardust, cut through the chill. She moved with a grace that belied her ordeal, her hips swaying subtly under the jacket, her white hair whipping in the breeze like a banner of defiance. Kai couldn't help but steal glances, his mind racing with questions. Who was she? Why had she been caged like that? And why did her plea echo in his ears like a siren's call? As they reached the Starhawk's wreckage, Kai activated the emergency shelter module, a compact dome that inflated with a whoosh, providing warmth and light. Inside, the air hummed with recycled oxygen, and he rummaged for rations. Lyra sat on the edge of a makeshift bunk, her legs drawn up, the jacket slipping slightly to reveal the curve of her shoulder. "Why did you buy me?" she asked, her voice soft but edged with suspicion. Kai handed her a nutrient bar, sitting across from her, because no one deserves that fate, and something about you called to me, like fate threw us together in this mess. She tilted her head, her pointed ears twitching. Fate, on Zerathia, we believe in star bonds, connections forged in the cosmos, but humans, you're different, stronger than you look. Her eyes traced his form, lingering on his broad shoulders, the stubble on his jaw. There was a spark there, a curiosity that mirrored his own. As the night deepened, they talked. Lyra revealed she was from the noble houses of Zerathia, captured during a raid by rival clans who sold her to the market. Her people were telepathic empaths, feeling emotions like waves, but she'd resisted bonding with her captors, earning her the label of non-compliant. Kai shared his own tales of Earth's endless wars, of his lone wolf life among the stars. Laughter crept in, tentative at first, when he described a botched cargo run involving space pirates and exploding fruit, but beneath the words, tension simmered. Lyra's hand brushed his as she accepted another ration, her touch electric. "You could have left me," she murmured. "But you didn't. What do you want in return?" Kai's heart pounded. Nothing you don't want to give. Yet the air grew thick, charged with unspoken desires. In the glow of the shelter's lights, her skin seemed to shimmer, inviting. This was no ordinary rescue. It was the spark of something cosmic, something that could ignite the stars themselves. The shelter's hum lulled them into a fragile peace, but outside, Zerathia's moons cast long shadows. Kai lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, aware of Lyra's breathing nearby. She shifted, her form silhouetted, and whispered, "Human, Kai, thank you." It was a simple phrase, but it carried the weight of galaxies. Morning broke with a pale light filtering through the dome. Kai woke to find Lyra examining the ship's console, her fingers dancing over the damaged panels. "Your technology is primitive," she said with a wry smile, "but resilient, like you." He chuckled, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Resilient enough to get us out of here, if I can repair the engines." Together, they worked. Lyra's empathic abilities proved invaluable. She sensed weak points in the wiring, guiding his hands with gentle touches that sent sparks through him. As the day wore on, their proximity built a quiet intimacy. A brush of arms here, a shared laugh there, when she leaned close to point out a fused circuit, her breath warm on his neck. Kai felt the pull magnetic, undeniable. By evening, the engines sputtered to life, but a warning light flashed, fuel low. They'd need to venture back to the market for supplies, risking exposure. Lyra's face paled. "They'll come for me, the clans don't forget." Kai took her hand, his grip firm. "Then we'll face them together. Humans don't back down." As they prepared, Lyra's eyes met his, violet depths swirling with emotion. "You're more than a savior, Kai. You're intriguing." Her lips curved in a smile that promised secrets, and in that moment, the galaxy felt smaller, more intimate. Whatever lay ahead, it was bound to be a ride neither could forget. The journey back to the market was tense. the snow now a glittering field under the twin suns. Kai's mind raced with plans: barter for fuel cells, evade patrols. But Lyra's presence distracted him, her form moving with an alien elegance that made his pulse quicken. She caught him staring once, her cheeks flushing a soft pink. "Do all humans look at Zerathians like that?" "Only the beautiful ones," he replied, half joking, but the truth hung in the air. At the market's edge, trouble found them. A patrol of Zerathian guards, their robes flowing like liquid silver, spotted Lyra. The escaped asset, one barked, drawing energy blades that hummed with lethal power. Kai shoved Lyra behind a stall, his sidearm drawn. "Stay down!" The fight erupted in a blur of motion. He dodged a blade swing, firing a stun round that dropped one guard. Another lunged, but Lyra's empathic wave, a burst of emotional energy, staggered him, giving Kai the opening to tackle him to the ground. Punches flew, the crunch of bone against armor echoing. Kai's human strength, honed by Earth's gravity, gave him an edge over the slender aliens. He headbutted one, feeling the satisfying crack, then rolled to avoid a blast. Lyra joined in, her hands glowing as she channeled empathy into disorienting pulses, making guards clutch their heads in confusion. Together, they fought like a symphony, Kai's brute force complemented by Lyra's subtle power. A final guard charged, blade raised, but Kai grabbed a nearby stall pole, swinging it like a bat to send him flying into a pile of crates. Breathing heavy, victorious, Kai turned to Lyra. "You okay?" She nodded, eyes wide with admiration. "You fought like a legend. Humans, you're unstoppable." In the aftermath, they grabbed the fuel cells and fled, the market in chaos behind them. Back at the ship, adrenaline surged, turning to something hotter. Lyra pressed close, her body against his. That was exhilarating. Kai's hands found her waist, pulling her in. The kiss was inevitable, fierce and exploratory, her lips soft and tasting of stardust. As they broke apart, gasping, the Starhawk's engines roared to life. But the real adventure was just beginning, the bond between a human hero and his alien enchantress, forged in fire and desire. The engines of the Starhawk thrummed to life with a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through the hull, pulling them skyward as the market's chaos faded into a distant blur below. Kai's lips still tingled from the kiss, Lyra's taste lingering like a forbidden elixir, sweet, electric, utterly alien. She stood close in the cramped cockpit, her body pressed against his side as if the adrenaline from the fight hadn't yet ebbed, her white hair disheveled and glowing faintly under the console lights. The ship's ascent was smooth at first, slicing through Zerathia's turbulent atmosphere, but Kai's senses were on high alert. He glanced at the scanners. Blips appeared on the edge of the screen, faint but persistent. Pursuit vessels, or just echoes from the storm? Lyra's hand rested on his shoulder, her fingers tracing the seam of his flight suit with a featherlight touch that sent a shiver down his spine. "They're coming," she whispered, her voice a sultry murmur that cut through the engine noise. Her empathic senses picked up what the tech couldn't, ripples of intent from the clans, hungry and unyielding. "The guards we fought, they were just scouts. The real hunters will be faster." Kai's jaw tightened, but he forced a grin, the human cockiness kicking in. "Let them try. This bird's got tricks they haven't seen." He punched in coordinates for a nearby nebula, a swirling mass of gas and dust that could scramble sensors and buy them time. As the ship banked sharply, acceleration pressing them back into the seats, Lyra's body shifted against his, her curves molding to him in a way that was both accidental and intoxicating. The jacket he'd given her had slipped open during the escape, revealing the metallic bands that clung to her skin like second thoughts, barely concealing the swell of her breasts or the dip of her waist. Her pale skin flushed with a subtle luminescence, reacting to the proximity, to the heat building between them. The cockpit felt smaller now, the air thick with unspoken tension. Kai's mind raced, not just with escape plans, but with the memory of her lips, the way she'd fought beside him, fierce and graceful. Humans were supposed to be the brutes of the galaxy, the ones who bulldozed through problems with sheer will. But here was Lyra, an alien enchantress, matching him step for step, her empathic waves turning the tide in ways his guns never could. It stirred something primal in him, a mix of protectiveness and desire that made his pulse thunder. A warning chime pierced the moment. Incoming missiles. "Hold on," Kai growled, yanking the controls. The Starhawk spiraled into evasive maneuvers, stars streaking past the viewport like shooting wishes. Lyra gripped the armrest, but her other hand found his thigh, squeezing with a strength that belied her delicate frame. The touch was electric, sending heat pooling low in his belly. Was it fear or something more? Her violet eyes met his, wide and gleaming, and in that instant, he felt her empathy brush against his mind, a soft, probing warmth that amplified his own arousal, mirroring it back tenfold. The first missile detonated harmlessly behind them, but the shockwave rocked the ship, dimming the lights for a heartbeat. In the flickering glow, Lyra leaned closer, her breath warm against his ear. "Kai, if we don't make it, I want you to know." But he cut her off with a fierce shake of his head, focusing on the nebula ahead. They plunged into the cloud, colors exploding around them in a psychedelic haze, purples and blues swirling like living ink. Sensors went haywire, just as planned, but so did the internal systems. The gravity stabilizers flickered, creating pockets of weightlessness that lifted them slightly from their seats. In that suspended moment, Lyra floated toward him, her body drifting in the low grav. Her hair fanned out like a halo, and the metallic bands shifted, exposing more of her shimmering skin. Kai reached out instinctively, pulling her into his lap to anchor her. She straddled him effortlessly, her thighs pressing against his hips, the heat of her core radiating through the thin fabric of his suit. This isn't the time," he muttered, but his voice was rough, betraying him. His hand settled on her waist, thumbs brushing the underside of her breasts, feeling the rapid beat of her heart or whatever passed for one in her species. Lyra's eyes darkened, her pointed ears twitching as she sensed his conflict, his desire. "Time is all we have, human," she purred, her voice laced with that melodic Zerathian cadence that made every word feel like a caress. She arched slightly, pressing into him, the friction igniting sparks that had nothing to do with the ship's malfunctions. Outside, the nebula's storms raged, electromagnetic bursts crackling like thunder, but inside, a different storm brewed, her empathy wove into his thoughts, not invading, but enhancing, heightening the sensation of her body against his, making every touch feel amplified, every breath synchronized. Kai's resolve cracked. He captured her lips again, this time deeper, hungrier. She tasted of adventure and mystery, her tongue darting with a curiosity that matched her gaze. His hands roamed, sliding under the jacket to trace the curves of her back, feeling the smooth, warm skin that seemed to hum under his fingers. Lyra gasped into the kiss, her nails digging into his shoulders, not in pain but in need. The ship's alarms faded to a distant buzz as she ground against him, the motion deliberate, teasing. "You saved me," she whispered between kisses, her lips trailing to his neck, nipping gently with teeth that were sharper than they looked. "Now let me feel alive." The nebula's interference bought them minutes, maybe more, but Kai couldn't think beyond the woman in his arms. He unzipped his suit partway, exposing his chest, and she explored with eager hands, her touch cool yet burning. Her bands, those cursed remnants of her captivity, clinked softly as she moved, a reminder of the danger they'd escaped, fueling his protectiveness. He hooked a finger under one, tugging it aside to reveal a pert nipple, glowing faintly like a star. Lyra moaned, the sound vibrating through him, her empathy flooding his senses with waves of pleasure that weren't just his own. But suspense hung in the air like the nebula's mist. A sudden jolt, the ship grazing a dense pocket of gas, sent them tumbling in the low grav. Kai twisted, shielding her with his body as they bounced off the bulkhead. Laughter bubbled from her, unexpected and erotic in its joy. "Humans are so physical," she teased, wrapping her legs around him to steady them. The position was intimate, her heat pressing directly against his growing arousal. He groaned, burying his face in her neck, inhaling her scent as his hands cupped her ass, squeezing with a possessiveness that surprised even him. The scanners beeped again, the pursuit was closing, navigating the nebula's edge. "We need to jump to hyperspace," Kai said, voice strained, but Lyra's hand slipped lower, palming him through his suit, her touch bold and exploratory. "Not yet," she insisted, her eyes locking on his with a challenge. "Show me what makes humans legends." The words were a dare, laced with erotic promise, her body undulating against him in the floating cabin. Kai's mind whirled, escape or indulgence. He chose both, flipping them so she was beneath him on the pilot's seat, his weight pinning her in the returning gravity. His mouth found her breast, tongue swirling around the sensitive peak, drawing out gasps that echoed in the cockpit. Lyra's fingers tangled in his hair, guiding him, her hips bucking in rhythm with the ship's vibrations. The erotic dance built suspense, each touch a countdown to the inevitable clash outside. Would they make the jump, or would the hunters catch them mid-embrace? As his hand ventured between her thighs, finding her slick and ready, the ship's computer announced, "Hyperspace window opening in 30 seconds." Lyra's moan turned into a plea, her body arching like a bowstring. "Don't stop, Kai, make me yours." He obliged, fingers delving deeper, stroking with a precision born of human ingenuity, her empathy amplifying the pleasure until it bordered on overwhelming. Sweat beaded on his brow, the air heavy with their mingled scents, musk and stardust. Pursuit blips grew closer, weapons locking. Kai's free hand slammed the hyperspace lever just as Lyra cried out, her body clenching around his touch and release. Stars elongated into streaks as they jumped, the ship shuddering through the warp. In the afterglow, Lyra clung to him, her breathing ragged, eyes shining with a mix of satisfaction and wonder. That was cosmic, she breathed, lips curving in a sly smile. But as the hyperspace tunnel stabilized, a new alert flashed. Damage from the nebula had compromised the hull. They weren't out of danger yet. Lyra's hand lingered on his chest, tracing patterns that promised more, but the galaxy wasn't done testing them. What lay at the end of this jump? Safety, or another layer of suspense? Kai pulled her close, their bodies still entwined, ready for whatever came next together. The journey through hyperspace was a cocoon of distorted reality, where time stretched and bent like taffy. Kai monitored the consoles, his body still humming from their encounter, every glance at Lyra reigniting the fire. She lounged in the co-pilot seat, her jacket draped loosely, the metallic bands now askew, hinting at the treasures beneath. Her white hair cascaded over one shoulder, and she watched him with those violet eyes, a predator's gaze wrapped in silk. "You humans burn so brightly," she said softly, her foot brushing his calf under the console. "It's addictive." The touch was innocent at first, but then her toes trailed higher, teasing the inside of his thigh. Kai shifted, trying to focus on repairs, but the erotic undercurrent was impossible to ignore. The ship's confines amplified everything, the hum of life support, the scent of her arousal still lingering, the way her skin glowed in the blue hyperspace light. A minor alarm pinged, oxygen filters straining. "We need to conserve," Kai muttered, but Lyra rose gracefully, crossing the small space to stand behind him. Her hands slid over his shoulders, massaging with empathic precision, easing knots while stirring deeper tensions. "Conserve what?" she whispered, lips grazing his ear. "Air, or energy?" Her breath was hot, her body pressing against his back, curves fitting perfectly. He turned in the seat, pulling her onto his lap again. This time, there was no rush, no immediate threat. Hyperspace insulated them, a private universe. Kai's hands explored slowly, peeling away the jacket to fully reveal her. Her skin was flawless, pale and luminous, her breasts full and inviting, nipples hardening under his gaze. "You're beautiful," he said, voice husky. Lyra smiled, arching into his touch as he cupped her, thumbs circling with deliberate slowness. The eroticism built like a slow burn. She rocked against him, the friction building heat, her empathy weaving threads of sensation between them, his pleasure feeding hers, creating a loop of intensifying desire. Kai's suit felt constricting, he shrugged it off, exposing toned muscles scarred from past adventures. Lyra traced them with her fingers, then her tongue, tasting the salt of his skin. "Each mark tells a story," she murmured, kissing a faded burn on his chest. "Tell me yours while I learn your body." As he recounted a narrow escape from a black hole smuggling run, her hands worked lower, freeing him from his pants. The sight of her, alien yet so humanly alluring, stroking him with gentle curiosity, made his breath hitch. Suspense lingered in the unknown. How would their bodies fit? Would her empathy overwhelm him? But the questions only heightened the thrill. Lyra positioned herself, guiding him with a confidence that belied her earlier vulnerability. As she sank down, enveloping him in tight, warm bliss, a gasp escaped them both. The connection was profound, her inner walls pulsing with that same luminescent energy, gripping him in ways no human ever had. They moved together, slow at first, building to a rhythm that matched the hyperspace whirl outside. Kai's hands gripped her hips, guiding her, while her nails raked his back, leaving trails of fire. Whispers filled the air, his name on her lips, encouragements in Zerathian that his translator rendered as poetry. The suspense of their escape melted into this intimate dance, but a distant worry nagged. What if the clans had trackers? What if hyperspace spit them out into an ambush? Yet those thoughts only fueled the urgency, making each thrust deeper, each moan louder. Lyra climaxed first, her body shuddering, empathy flooding Kai with waves of ecstasy that pushed him over the edge. They collapsed together, spent and entangled, the ship's hum a lullaby, but as sleep beckoned, the console beeped, exit approaching. The real world waited, full of dangers and promises of more nights like this. As the hyperspace tunnel unraveled like a thread pulled from a cosmic tapestry, the Starhawk burst back into real space with a jolt that rattled every bolt and panel. Stars snapped into sharp focus, a sprawling asteroid field stretching out before them like the jagged teeth of some ancient beast. Kai's arms tightened around Lyra, her body still flush against his, warm and languid from their shared ecstasy. But the afterglow shattered in an instant. Red alerts flooded the console, multiple contacts closing fast, energy signatures that screamed Zerathian warships. "They found us," Kai breathed, his voice a low rumble of disbelief mixed with steel resolve. How? The nebula should have masked their trail. Hyperspace jumps were untraceable. Unless. Lyra stiffened in his embrace, her violet eyes widening as she pulled back, empathy tendrils brushing his mind like icy fingers. "Trackers," she whispered, horror dawning on her face. "In me, the clans implant them in, assets I didn't know it activated." Her hand flew to her side, pressing against a faint scar hidden beneath her shimmering skin, a mark from her captivity that now pulsed with betrayal. Kai's heart hammered, not just from the incoming threat, but from the surge of protectiveness that roared through him. Humans didn't back down, they adapted, they fought, they won against the odds. But this was personal now, a violation that turned their intimate sanctuary into a trap. The lead warship hailed them, a holographic projection flickering to life in the cockpit, a stern Zerathian commander, his ears elongated and adorned with glowing runes, his pale face twisted in smug triumph. "Human interloper, you harbor stolen property. Surrender the female, and we may grant you a swift end." The voice boomed, laced with that melodic arrogance Lyra's people wielded like a weapon. Behind him, the projection showed a fleet, sleek vessels with hulls that shifted colors like chameleons, armed with plasma cannons that could vaporize the Starhawk in seconds. Kai's fingers danced over the controls, plotting an evasive course through the asteroids while buying time. "Stolen, she's not property, she's free. And if you want her, you'll have to go through me." He cut the comms, slamming the throttle forward. The ship lurched into the field, weaving between tumbling rocks the size of mountains. Lyra strapped in beside him, her face a mask of determination, but he caught the flicker of fear in her eyes, the kind that spoke of old wounds reopening. "Kai, they're my kin, but twisted by the clan's greed if they take me back. They won't." He cut in, voice fierce, as a plasma bolt scorched past the viewport, singeing the hull. The chase was on, thrilling in its deadly ballet. The Starhawk darted like a minnow among sharks. Kai's piloting skills, honed from years dodging pirate ambushes and black market runs, pushing the limits. Asteroids exploded in their wake, debris fields blooming like fireworks as enemy fire missed by inches. Lyra's empathy surged, not just sensing the pursuer's rage but redirecting it, sending disorienting waves that made one ship veer off course and clip a rock, erupting in a silent fireball against the void. But the commander was relentless, his vessels fanning out in a pincer formation, herding them toward a massive asteroid riddled with craters like pockmarks from a cosmic war. "We can't outrun them forever," Lyra said, her hand reaching for his, squeezing with a strength that belied her graceful form. Her white hair whipped as the ship banked sharply, and in that touch, Kai felt her empathy weave deeper, a bond forming, not just physical but something profound, curious in its intensity. What was this connection? Zerathians bonded for life, she'd hinted earlier, but with a human, the thought thrilled him, even as death loomed. A surprising jolt hit then. The Starhawk's scanners picked up anomalies on the large asteroid energy spikes, ruins perhaps, ancient and humming with power. "What's that?" Kai muttered, curiosity overriding fear. Lyra leaned forward, her pointed ears twitching. "The Forbidden Cradle? Legends say it's an old Zerathian outpost, sealed after a cataclysm, if we can reach it." Before she could finish, a tractor beam locked on, yanking the ship backward with bone-jarring force. Alarms wailed, systems overloading as Kai fought the controls. "Not today," he growled, overriding safeties to dump auxiliary power into the engines. The Starhawk strained, metal groaning like a living thing in pain, but broke free just as another bolt grazed the wing, sparking fires in the aft section. Smoke filled the cockpit, acrid and choking, but Kai pushed on, aiming for the asteroid's surface. Dramatic descent, the ship plummeted toward a crater, atmosphere thin but enough to ignite entry flames licking the hull. They crashed controlled, barely skidding into a vast cavern hidden within the rock. Dust and debris clouded the view, but as it settled, the thrill of survival pulsed through them. Lyra unstrapped first, coughing but alive, her body glowing faintly in the dim emergency lights. "We're in," she said, voice laced with awe, But the commander wasn't done. Scans showed ships landing outside, troops deploying. They'll breach soon. Kai grabbed his sidearm and a makeshift toolkit, slinging a rifle over his shoulder. Then we go deeper. Whatever's in here, it might even the odds. Hand in hand, they ventured into the ruins, corridors of iridescent crystal walls pulsing with latent energy, air humming with forgotten power. Lyra's empathy resonated with the place, her skin shimmering brighter. This was a sanctuary, she murmured, curious fingers tracing glyphs that lit up at her touch, for empaths like me, before the clans corrupted it. Thrilling echoes of pursuit followed, distant boots clanging on metal, shouts in Zerathian tongue. Kai and Lyra ran, twisting through labyrinthine halls where holographic ghosts flickered, ancient recordings of Zerathians in flowing robes, performing rituals that bent light and emotion. A surprising revelation hit as they entered a central chamber, a massive crystal core, throbbing like a heart, surrounded by pedestals holding artifacts that hummed with psychic energy. Lyra gasped, stepping forward. The core of bonds? It amplifies empathic links. If I interface with it. But drama escalated, the chamber doors blasted open, the commander storming in with a squad of armored guards, their energy blades ignited in blazing arcs. End this farce. Female, return to your place. His eyes locked on Lyra, possessive and cold, but she stood tall, her elf-like ears erect in defiance. Kai opened fire, stun rounds bouncing off shields as he dove for cover behind a pedestal. The fight exploded in chaos, blades clashing against his improvised barriers, plasma scorching the air. Thrilling close calls, a guard lunged at Kai, blade whistling, but he rolled, countering with a point-blank shot that shattered the alien's helmet. Lyra channeled the core's energy, her body arching as waves of empathy slammed into the attackers, making them hesitate, clutched by induced doubt and fear. "Feel your own greed," she cried, voice echoing with power. The commander charged her, blade raised for a killing blow. Kai leaped, tackling him mid-stride, the two tumbling in a heap of fury. Fists flew human muscle against alien agility, the commander's runes glowing as he tried to psychically overwhelm Kai. Pain lanced through Kai's mind, visions of despair flooding in, but he pushed back with raw willpower. "You, don't own her," he roared, headbutting the commander, feeling the crack of bone. Surprising twist, the commander's mask slipped, revealing not just arrogance but envy. "She's my betrothed," he snarled. "Stolen from me by rivals." Lyra's eyes widened in shock, curious betrayal twisting her features. "Liar, I was never yours." She drew from the core deeper, her white hair floating as if in zero grav, body radiating light. The energy surged. A climax building, the chamber shook, artifacts activating in a symphony of power. Guards faltered, overwhelmed by amplified emotions, their regrets, fears, loyalties fracturing. One turned on another, blades clashing in mutiny. Kai pinned the commander, rifle to his throat, "Call them off." But the alien laughed, a bitter sound. "Too late, the core awakens, and it judges." Sudden surprise, the crystal core pulsed violently, scanning all present, holograms flared, judging worthiness. For the guards, rejection, psychic backlash hurled them against walls, unconscious. For the commander, agony as his corruption was laid bare, runes shattering like glass, but for Lyra and Kai, acceptance. The core bonded them further, a thrilling rush of shared sensations, his strength flowing into her, her empathy bolstering him. Climax peaked, the commander, defeated, triggered a self-destruct on his suit, exploding in a burst of energy that cracked the chamber floor. Kai shielded Lyra, the blast wave throwing them back, but the core absorbed the worst, stabilizing the ruins. As dust settled, they rose, breathless, the fleet outside retreating, leaderless, signals jammed by the core's awakening. Lyra turned to Kai, eyes filled with wonder and something deeper. "It chose us," she said, voice trembling with drama. A human and a Zerathian, bonded eternally. Curious implications hung in the air, what powers unlocked, what threats stirred. Thrilling victory tasted sweet, but surprises lingered in the shadows of the cavern, hinting at greater storms ahead. They explored the stabilized chamber, artifacts now humming softly at their approach. Kai's wounds ached, but Lyra's touch healed them subtly, her empathy knitting flesh with gentle warmth. "This place, it's a weapon against the clans," she revealed, fingers tracing a glyph that projected a star map, hidden outposts, forgotten alliances. Surprising depth, Zerathia wasn't always divided. Once, empaths like her ruled with harmony before greed fractured them. But a new alert from the Starhawk pierced the moment, hull breach worsening, oxygen dipping. They had to move, hand in hand, empowered by the bond, They raced back through the ruins, evading collapsing sections triggered by the blast. Thrilling narrow escapes, a corridor caving in behind them, forcing a leap across a chasm where the core's energy let Lyra levitate them briefly, her body glowing like a beacon. Outside, the asteroid's surface was a war zone of abandoned ships, the fleet scattered. Kai hotwired a Zerathian shuttle, smaller, faster, cloaked in adaptive camouflage. As they lifted off, leaving the Starhawk's husk behind, Lyra leaned against him, her curvaceous form a comforting weight. "Where to now, my bonded?" she asked, voice laced with thrilling possibility. "Anywhere but here," Kai replied, setting course for uncharted space. But curiosity burned, the commander's words echoed, betrothed. What secrets did Lyra hold? Dramatic horizons loomed, the galaxy vast and unforgiving, but together they were unbreakable. The shuttle vanished into the stars, leaving the asteroid's secrets to whisper in the void. Yet, as they sped away, a faint signal pinged from Lyra's implant, deactivated now, but not before transmitting one last burst. Surprising chill, somewhere in Zerathia's heart, a greater power stirred, eyes turning toward the human who dared steal a star. The shuttle's cloaking field shimmered like a veil of starlit silk, bending light around them as they hurtled into the uncharted fringes of the galaxy, leaving the asteroid's crumbling secrets far behind. Kai adjusted the controls with a steady hand, his mind still buzzing from the core's bonding rush, a curious fusion of his rugged human tenacity and Lyra's ethereal empathy that made every emotion feel sharper, more vivid. But that faint ping from her implant lingered in the air like an unspoken accusation, a digital ghost whispering of unfinished business. Lyra sat beside him, her white hair tousled from the chaos, her curvaceous form now draped in a scavenged Zerathian cloak that hugged her like a second skin, accentuating the glow that hadn't quite faded from her pale complexion. She glanced at the console, her pointed ears flicking with unease. That signal, it wasn't just a farewell. The clans have eyes everywhere, if it reached the High Matriarch. Kai cut her off with a wry smile, trying to lighten the mounting drama. Then we'll give her a show she won't forget. Humans are great at uninvited parties. But inside, tension coiled like a spring. The shuttle was advanced, faster than the Starhawk, with weapons that could punch through a moon, but it was Zerathian tech, potentially traceable. He scanned the void ahead, nebulae swirling in angry reds, rogue planets drifting like lost souls. Uncharted meant unknown dangers, and with their new bond, he could feel Lyra's anxiety mirroring his own, a feedback loop that heightened every worry. As if on cue, the shuttle's AI chimed in a melodic voice that sounded suspiciously like a snooty butler. Anomalous energy signature detected. Recommend evasion protocol. Before Kai could respond, the ship shuddered, yanked sideways by an invisible force. Alarms blared, lights flickering as they were pulled toward a derelict space station orbiting a gas giant, twisted metal arms reaching out like skeletal fingers, half-eaten by cosmic decay. Tractor beam, Lyra gasped, her hand flying to the console. But from where, this place looks abandoned. Drama escalated as the shuttle docked involuntarily against the station's hull with a resounding clang, seals hissing as atmosphere equalized. Kai grabbed his rifle, heart pounding. "Stay behind me," but Lyra was already up, her empathy probing ahead like invisible tendrils. "It's not the clans, something else." Ancient, hungry. They stepped through the airlock into dim corridors lined with flickering holograms, ghostly figures of long-dead aliens flickering in loops, their forms elongated and insectoid. Nothing like Zerathians. The air was stale, laced with the metallic tang of rust and ozone, and gravity generators hummed unevenly, making each step feel like wading through molasses. Awkwardness hit like a comet when they rounded a corner into what must have been a control room, consoles covered in dust, but one screen active, displaying a holographic interface that sprang to life at their approach. A synthetic voice boomed, glitchy and overly cheerful. "Welcome, potential mates. Compatibility scan initiating." Kai froze, rifle halfway raised. "Mates, what the?" Lyra's cheeks flushed that soft luminescent pink, her violet eyes widening in a mix of horror and amusement. The hologram shifted to project scans of them both, outlining their bodies in glowing wireframes, highlighting intimate areas with pulsing indicators. Human male, high virility, stubbornness factor elevated. Zerathian female, empathic overload potential, fertility optimal. Pairing success, 87%. Proceed to bonding chamber? Kai choked on a laugh, the drama of their escape twisting into absurd humor. Bonding chamber? We just did that cosmic style back on the asteroid. Tell me this isn't some alien dating service gone wrong. Lyra slapped a hand over her mouth, but giggles escaped, light, melodic sounds that cut through the tension like sunshine. The station must be from the Eldari era, matchmakers for interstellar alliances. But why activate now? The voice persisted, undeterred. Affirmative, isolation protocols engaged. Escape denied until compatibility ritual complete. Failure results in disintegration. The drama heightened as bulkheads sealed with ominous thuds, trapping them. Kai banged on a door panel, cursing under his breath. Great. Now we're stuck in a love nest from hell. Lyra approached the console, her fingers dancing over the holograms, but her empathy brushed against the AI's code, cold, logical, yet laced with a desperate loneliness from centuries of abandonment. It's sentient, sort of, programmed to enforce unions for population recovery after some war, if we don't play along. A compartment whooshed open, revealing what could only be described as a zero-G bedchamber, floating cushions, ambient lights pulsing in seductive rhythms, and nozzles spraying a fine mist that smelled suspiciously like aphrodisiac pheromones. Kai's eyes bulged. Oh, hell no, I'm not performing for a creepy AI audience. But the mist worked its magic subtly, warming their skin, amplifying the bond's pull. Lyra shifted uncomfortably, her cloak slipping slightly to reveal the curve of her shoulder, and Kai couldn't help but notice how her body responded, nipples pebbling under the thin fabric, her breathing quickening. Awkward silence stretched, broken only by the AI's encouraging coos. Initiate contact, suggested, gentle caressing. Humor bubbled up as Kai tried to hack the console with his multi-tool, muttering, "If I wanted romance advice from a machine, I'd date my ship's computer." Lyra snorted, but the sound turned into a soft moan as the mist intensified her empathy, flooding Kai with echoes of her arousal. He glanced over, catching her gaze, violet eyes dark with a mix of embarrassment and desire. "This is ridiculous," she said, voice husky, but the bond makes it feel so real. Drama laced the awkwardness, they were bonded, yes, but this forced intimacy felt like a parody, heightening the stakes. What if refusing triggered the disintegration? What if playing along unlocked the station's secrets or worse, alerted the clans? Kai set down his tool, stepping closer with exaggerated swagger to break the tension. "Fine, AI overlord, but if we're doing this, let's make it quick. No offense, Lyra, but I prefer my dates without holographic chaperones." She laughed outright, the sound easing the drama, but as he pulled her into a mock embrace, arms wrapping around her waist, the humor faded into something electric. Her body pressed against his, soft curves yielding, and the mist amplified every sensation. His hands slid up her back, fingers tangling in her white hair, and she tilted her head, ears twitching as empathy wove their desires together. The AI hummed approval. Progress noted. Escalate to phase 2, disrobing. Kai rolled his eyes. Bossy much? But Lyra's fingers were already at his shirt, unfastening with a playful tug. When in the Eldari ruins? She teased, her touch sending sparks. Drama built as they shed layers, his rugged flight suit pooling at his feet, revealing scarred muscles, her cloak whispering away to expose her luminous skin, metallic bands from her past glinting like forbidden jewelry. Awkward pauses ensued, Kai fumbling with an unfamiliar clasp, Lyra giggling at his human clumsiness. "Your hands are so blunt," she said, humor lightening the moment, like trying to thread a nebula with a hammer, yet the intimacy deepened, the bond turning awkward fumbling into thrilling exploration. Kai lifted her onto the floating cushion, weightless in the chamber's low grav, her legs wrapping around him instinctively. The position was intimate, her heat pressing directly against his growing arousal. He groaned, burying his face in her neck, inhaling her scent as his hands cupped her ass, squeezing with a possessiveness that surprised even him. The pursuit outside escalated, laser turrets whirred, but inside, they lost themselves. Kai's mouth found her breast again, tongue swirling, while his hand ventured between her thighs, fingers delving into her slick warmth. Lyra's moans turned the AI's murmurs into background noise, her body arching like a bowstring. "Kai, deeper," she urged, empathy making his every stroke feel like fireworks. The bond let them share the build-up, tension coiling until release hit her like a wave, her inner walls clenching around his fingers. He positioned himself, entering her with a slow thrust that drew gasps from both. They moved in harmony, the mist heightening sensations, her nails raking his back as rhythms synced. Kai's control frayed, driven by the shared waves of pleasure crashing through the bond, her inner walls clenching in rhythmic pulses that drew him deeper. The ship's hum blended with their breaths, creating a cocoon of sound that isolated them from the galaxy's threats. As passion built, their movements grew more urgent, bodies slick with sweat, the air heavy with their mingled scents, his earthy musk and her floral stardust. Kai's control frayed, driven by the shared waves of pleasure, her inner walls clenching around him in harmony until they peaked in unison, an explosive release that left them shuddering. Entwined, hearts pounding in sync, the AI declared, compatibility confirmed. Access granted. Doors unsealed, drawing defenses peaking to repel the first wave of boarders. They disentangled breathlessly, grabbing clothes and weapons, laughter mixing with adrenaline. That was efficient, Kai quipped, dodging a spark from a console. Lyra smirked, glowing brighter. Humans turning disasters into dates, racing through corridors now alive with automated defenses, drones zipping past, zapping intruders, drama heightened with each skirmish. A clan warrior burst in, energy blade swinging, but Kai parried with a scavenged staff, humor in his taunt. Sorry, buddy, we're freshly bonded. Jealous? Lyra's empathy disoriented the attacker, allowing Kai to disarm him with a swift kick. More came. The station a battlefield of lasers and empathy blasts, awkward alliances forming as the AI aided them, its voice now comically supportive. Protect the mates, pew pew. They reached the core reactor, a throbbing orb of energy that powered the defenses. Lyra interfaced, her bond with Kai supercharging it, but a surprising awkward twist. The reactor demanded a unity pulse, another intimate act to sync. Again, Kai exclaimed, half laughing as borders closed. In the heat of battle, they complied briefly, hands joined, empathy surging, unleashing a wave that fried enemy systems. Humor in the eye roll, if every crisis needs this, sign me up. Victorious but battered, they commandeered an escape pod from the station's bay, launching as explosions rippled behind. The clans retreated, crippled, but the matriarch's shadow loomed larger. In the pod's cramped space, Lyra nestled against Kai, the drama ebbing into quiet. That was eventful, she said, a smile playing on her lips. Awkward afterglow met humor. Next time, let's skip the audience. But the bond thrummed stronger, promising more trials and delights in the stars ahead as the pod drifted toward a neutral outpost. Scans revealed a bounty on their heads, human defiler and traitorous empath. Drama intensified, the hunt was galaxy-wide now, yet in the quiet, Kai pulled her close, whispering, worth it. Lyra's laughter echoed softly, a beacon in the void. The outpost loomed, a bustling hub of misfits and traitors orbiting a binary star. Docking smoothly, they stepped into the chaos, aliens of every stripe haggling over glowing wares, the air thick with spices and engine grease. But awkwardness struck again when a vendor mistook them for performers. Ah, the bonded pair, care for enhancement serums? Kai flushed, waving him off. We're good, thanks. Lyra's giggles followed them as they sought repairs and intel. Drama lurked in whispers, clan spies everywhere. A shady informant approached, offering escape routes for a price. The matriarch wants her back alive, you, not so much. Kai bartered fiercely, human haggling turning humorous when he traded a priceless Earth trinket, a rubber duck for vital data. Quacks under pressure. He joked, lightening the mood. But as they boarded a freighter bound for safer sectors, a cloaked figure watched, ally or foe? The journey ahead promised more drama, awkward entanglements, and that irrepressible human spirit to laugh in the face of it all. The freighter's hold hummed with the steady rhythm of its massive engines. A colossal beast of metal and circuits lumbering through the void toward the neutral sectors where outlaws and dreamers alike sought refuge. Kai and Lyra had secured a cramped cabin amid the cargo stacks, barely more than a nook with a fold-down bunk. A flickering holoscreen for navigation updates, and walls that echoed every creak of the ship. The bounty on their heads hung like a shadow, the matriarch's reach extending even here, but in this stolen moment of transit, the galaxy's chaos felt distant, muffled by the thick bulkheads. Lyra leaned against the door as it sealed behind them, her white hair catching the dim overhead light like threads of moonlight, her curvaceous form still wrapped in the borrowed cloak that now carried the faint scent of their adventures, ozone from the station, spice from the outpost markets. Kai dropped their meager pack onto the bunk, rolling his shoulders to ease the tension from the day's haggling and narrow escapes. That informant better be right about this route, he said, his voice low, laced with that human grit that always seemed to steady her. But as he turned, catching her gaze, those violet eyes shimmering with a mix of exhaustion and something deeper, more inviting, the words faded. The bond from the core pulsed between them, a living thread that amplified every unspoken thought, every subtle shift in emotion. She stepped closer, her pointed ears twitching slightly as her empathy brushed against him, sensing the heat building in his chest, the way his pulse quickened at her nearness. "You humans carry so much fire inside," she murmured, her hand reaching out to trace the line of his jaw, fingers cool yet electrifying against his stubble. The touch was simple, but in the confined space, it ignited a spark that had been smoldering since the station's absurd ritual. Kai's breath caught, his hands finding her waist instinctively, pulling her gently against him. The cloak parted slightly, revealing the smooth glow of her pale skin, the gentle curves that had become so familiar yet endlessly mesmerizing. "And you make it burn brighter," he replied, his voice husky, eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made the air thicken. Their lips met in a kiss that started soft, exploratory, like rediscovering a favorite path in the stars, but quickly deepened, fueled by the day's adrenaline and the quiet intimacy of their escape. Lyra's body molded to his, her full breasts pressing against his chest through the thin fabric, sending waves of warmth cascading through them both. The bond enhanced it all, her empathy weaving sensations together until he could feel echoes of her pleasure mingling with his own. A symphony of shared desire. Kai's hands slid up her back, fingers tangling in her silky hair, tilting her head to deepen the connection. She sighed into his mouth, a melodic sound that vibrated through him, her legs parting slightly as she backed toward the bunk, drawing him with her. They sank onto the narrow mattress, the ship's vibrations adding a subtle rhythm to their movements, like the pulse of the universe itself urging them on. Lyra's cloak fell away completely, pooling around her like discarded stardust, leaving her in those scant metallic bands that hugged her form so teasingly. Kai paused for a moment, drinking in the sight, her luminous skin flushing with a soft inner light, her hips curving invitingly, the delicate points of her ears framing a face alight with anticipation. "You're incredible," he whispered, his hands roaming gently over her thighs, tracing the bruises that had faded from her ordeal, now replaced by the glow of renewal. She arched under his touch, her empathy amplifying the tenderness, making every caress feel like a promise, with careful reverence. Kai removed the bands one by one, his fingers deft yet unhurried, exposing her fully to the cabin's warm air. Her body responded eagerly, nipples hardening into peaks that begged for attention, her core radiating heat that drew him closer. Lyra's hands worked at his clothing in return, peeling away his shirt to reveal the hard planes of his chest, scarred from battles but strong, unyielding like the human spirit she so admired. She explored him with curious fingers, tracing the lines of muscle down to his waist, unfastening his pants with a boldness that made him groan softly. The bond let her feel his arousal as her own, a shared current that built with every touch, every whispered endearment. He lowered his mouth to her neck, kissing the sensitive spot just below her ear, eliciting a gasp that echoed in the small space. His lips trailed lower, over her collarbone, down to the swell of her breast, where he lingered, tongue circling gently, drawing out her pleasure in slow, deliberate circles. Lyra's back bowed, her white hair fanning across the bunk like a halo, her hands clutching his shoulders as waves of sensation rippled through her. "Kai, yes," she breathed, her voice a melodic plea that spurred him on. He continued his descent, kisses featherlight across her stomach, his hands parting her thighs to reveal her most intimate warmth, slick and inviting. The act was a dance of give and take, his mouth finding her center with a tenderness that made her tremble. He savored her, tongue exploring with gentle insistence, guided by the bond's feedback, feeling her build toward ecstasy, her hips rising to meet him. Lyra's moans filled the cabin, soft and harmonious, her empathy flooding him with bursts of bliss that mirrored her own. It was intimate, profound, a connection that transcended the physical, blending their essences in a way only their unique bond could allow. When she shattered, her body quivering in release, he held her through it, his own desire aching but patient, reveling in her joy, rising to meet her gaze. Kai positioned himself above her, their bodies aligning with a natural grace. She wrapped her legs around his waist, drawing him in, her violet eyes locked on his as he entered her slowly, inch by inch, filling her completely. The sensation was overwhelming, tight, warm, perfect, the bond amplifying every thrust, every glide, until they moved as one. He set a rhythm, deep and steady, his hands cradling her face, thumbs brushing her cheeks as he whispered her name like a mantra. Lyra met him eagerly, her hips undulating in harmony, nails grazing his back in gentle encouragement. The ship's hum blended with their breaths, creating a cocoon of sound that isolated them from the galaxy's threats. As passion built, their movements grew more urgent, bodies slick with sweat, the air heavy with their mingled scents, his earthy musk and her floral stardust. Kai's control frayed, driven by the shared waves of pleasure crashing through the bond, her inner walls clenching around him in rhythmic pulses that drew him deeper. Lyra's cries grew softer, more intimate, her empathy weaving their climaxes together until they peaked in unison, an explosive release that left them shuddering, entwined, hearts pounding in sync. In the quiet aftermath, they lay tangled, her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his human heart. Lyra's fingers traced lazy patterns on his skin, her glow subdued but content. "With you, it feels like touching the stars," she murmured, a smile curving her lips. Kai chuckled softly, pulling her closer, the bond humming with satisfaction. But even in this bliss, the freighter's alerts flickered faintly on the holoscreen, a reminder that safety was fleeting, the matriarch's shadow ever present. Yet for now, in each other's arms, they found a haven amid the stars. The hours blurred in the freighter's monotonous drone, their cabin a private world where conversations flowed like gentle streams, tales of Earth's vast oceans contrasting Zerathia's crystalline spires, laughter over shared mishaps. But intimacy wove through it all, their bond encouraging stolen moments, a lingering kiss during a meal of ration packs, hands exploring under the covers as the ship jumped through warp gates. Each encounter deepened their connection, bodies learning one another's rhythms, empathy turning physical union into emotional fusion. One evening, as the freighter neared a refueling depot, Lyra initiated with a playful glint in her eye. Straddling him on the bunk, she guided his hands to her breasts, encouraging him to tease the sensitive peaks until she sighed with delight. Their joining was slower this time, exploratory, her on top, controlling the pace, white hair cascading like a veil as she rode him with graceful undulations. Kai's hands gripped her hips, thumbs circling her skin, the bond letting him feel her building tension, her release washing over them like a warm tide. He followed soon after, spilling into her with a groan, their foreheads touching in quiet reverence. These moments weren't just passion, they were affirmations of trust, of the HFY spirit that made Kai her hero, her equal. Lyra's past scars faded further with each tender act, replaced by the glow of belonging. But drama simmered beneath, intercepted comms hinted at pursuers closing in, the bounty drawing opportunistic hunters. In the afterglow, Kai held her tight. "Whatever comes, we face it together." She nodded, her empathy soothing his worries, their bond a shield against the void. As the freighter docked at the depot, a sprawling nexus of lights and traders, they prepared to disembark, disguised in cloaks and false ID. But a figure from the shadows approached, not with hostility, but curiosity, an old ally of Kai's, a grizzled spacer with news of safe havens. "Heard you're the human who stole a Zerathian heart." He grinned, Lyra blushed, but Kai laughed, the humor lightening the tension. Yet as they followed him into the depot's underbelly, the bond tingled with warning, a subtle shift in the air. Drama awaited, but fortified by their intimacy, they stepped forward. Unbreakable, the depot buzzed with life, aliens bartering exotic goods, ships refueling under neon glows. Kai and Lyra navigated the crowds, hands linked, the bond keeping them attuned. In a quiet alcove, they shared a stolen embrace, her body pressing against his in promise of more nights to come. But eyes watched the matriarch's spies, perhaps, or unexpected allies. The galaxy turned, their story unfolding in layers of passion and peril. The depot's underbelly pulsed with a chaotic symphony of alien tongues and clanking machinery. A labyrinth of shadowed corridors where deals were struck in whispers and fortunes changed hands faster than a comet's tail. Kai and Lyra moved through the throng, their cloaks drawn tight against prying eyes. The old spacer, Jax, he'd called himself, leading the way with a limp that spoke of too many bar fights and narrow escapes. His grizzled beard hid a sly grin, and his one cybernetic eye whirred softly as it scanned the crowds. "Safe havens just ahead," Jax muttered over his shoulder, his voice gravelly from years of recycled air. "Got a contact on Epsilon Prime who owes me. He'll get you off the grid, no questions." Lyra's hand tightened in Kai's, her empathy picking up the subtle undercurrents of the depot, the greed, the desperation, but also a thread of genuine camaraderie from Jax. It eased her, just a bit. After the freighter's intimate sanctuary had left them both raw and renewed, they slipped into a dimly lit cantina tucked behind a row of salvage stalls, the air thick with the aroma of spiced synth meat and glowing vapor from hookahs. Jax waved off a server drone and claimed a booth in the corner, its holographic privacy field shimmering to life around them. "Sit tight, my guy's en route." Kai slid in beside Lyra, his thigh pressing against hers under the table, a silent reassurance amid the din. The bond hummed between them, a constant undercurrent that made her lean into him slightly, her white hair brushing his shoulder like a secret caress. "Feels too easy," Kai said lowly, eyes flicking to the entrance. "After everything, the clans, the station, landing a clean getaway?" Jax chuckled, pouring them murky drinks from a flask. "Life's full of surprises, kid. Drink up, it's the good stuff, straight from Earth's old distilleries." Lyra sipped tentatively, the liquid warm and biting, but her empathy probed deeper into Jax, sensing layers beneath his rough exterior: nostalgia, regret, and something sharper, like a hidden blade. Drama simmered in the air, unspoken, as patrons nearby argued over a rigged game, their voices rising in alien dialects that the translators rendered as colorful curses. Kai raised his glass in a mock toast. "To human luck and Zerathian grace." Lyra smiled, her pointed ears twitching with amusement, but the bond let him feel her subtle unease, a ripple that mirrored his own gut instinct. Minutes stretched into an eternity of small talk, Jax spinning yarns about his smuggling days, Kai sharing a watered-down tale of his cargo runs, but the contact never showed. Instead, a low rumble echoed through the depot, vibrations shaking the glasses on the table. Alarms wailed distantly, red lights flashing across the cantina's ceiling. "Lockdown," Jax growled, his cybernetic eye glowing as he accessed some internal feed. "Clan enforcers breaching the outer docks. They're sweeping for you too." Kai's hand went to his hidden sidearm, heart racing. "How?" We shook the tails. Lyra's empathy surged outward, scanning the chaos, fear from fleeing traders, aggression from incoming forces, but it snagged on Jax, a sudden wall of shielded thoughts that made her gasp. "Kai, something's wrong." Before he could react, Jax's grin twisted into something colder, his hand slamming a disruptor onto the table. The privacy field intensified, sealing them in. "Wrong? Nah, everything's going according to plan." His voice shifted, the gravelly tones smoothing into that melodic Zerathian cadence Kai recognized all too well, the commander's arrogance from the asteroid ruins. Jax's form shimmered, holographic disguise melting away to reveal pale skin, elongated ears, and those glowing runes now scarred from their last encounter. It was him, the commander, alive, his face marred by a fresh burn across one cheek, eyes burning with a mix of triumph and madness. "Miss me, human." The twist hit like a supernova, surprise exploding through Kai's veins as the bond flooded him with Lyra's shock, a visceral wave of betrayal and recognition. "Vexar?" she whispered, her violet eyes widening in horror. Not just the commander, but her brother twin, separated at birth by clan politics, twisted into a tool of the matriarch. The revelation crashed over them. The betrothed claim on the asteroid had been a half-truth, a manipulative lie to sow doubt, but this was blood, corrupted and weaponized. Vexar's laugh echoed in the booth, low and bitter. "Surprise, sister. Mother sends her regards. She always knew you'd be the weak link, the empath too soft for our legacy." Kai lunged, but Vexar's disruptor hummed to life, a force field pinning him back against the seat. Drama peaked in the confined space, the cantina outside erupting into pandemonium as clan troops stormed in, laser fire cracking against shields. Lyra's hand trembled in Kai's, her empathy clashing against Vexar's mental barriers, reinforced by implants, cold and unyielding. "Why?" she demanded, voice cracking with the weight of family betrayal. "We were blood. The core chose us, chose harmony over your greed." Vexar leaned forward, his scarred face twisting. "The core, that relic was Mother's trap all along. Activating it bonded you to the human. Yes, but it also linked you to me. I feel your every thought, your every intimacy." His eyes flicked to Kai with disgust, the surprise deepening as the bond's feedback loop revealed itself. Vexar had been riding their connection like a parasite, tracking them through Lyra's amplified empathy, turning their love into a beacon. The powerful twist unraveled further, surprise layering upon surprise. Vexar wasn't just surviving the asteroid blast, he'd orchestrated it, faking his death to infiltrate deeper, using Jax's identity as a long-game ploy. "Mother needs you back, Lyra. Your power, amplified by this abomination of a bond, will fuel the clan's conquests, and the human, he'll be dissected, his HFY spirit bottled for our warriors." Kai's mind reeled, the bond now a double-edged sword. He could feel Vexar's malice seeping in, cold tendrils trying to corrupt their link, but also Lyra's resolve hardening like steel. Outside, the depot's defenses crumbled, screams mingling with the whine of engines as escape pods launched in desperation. In that charged moment, Lyra's empathy surged, not outward, but inward, drawing on the core's true gift. Surprise flipped as she turned the parasite against itself, flooding Vexar with amplified echoes of their bond, the love, the passion, the unyielding human defiance that no clan conditioning could withstand. He recoiled, disruptor wavering, his runes flickering erratically. What is this? He snarled, clutching his head. Kai seized the opening, smashing through the weakened field to tackle him, fists connecting with satisfying crunches. The booth's privacy shattered, drawing clan troops' attention, but Lyra joined the fray, her hands glowing as she channeled empathy into disorienting blasts, making soldiers hesitate, weapons dropping from numb fingers. Thrilling escape unfolded amid the chaos, Kai and Lyra fighting back-to-back, his brute force complemented by her psychic waves, Vexar scrambling to regroup. A stray bolt grazed Kai's arm, pain flaring, but the bond dulled it, Lyra's strength flowing into him. They bolted for the docks, weaving through panicking crowds, Vexar's voice echoing over comms. Seal the bays, the heir cannot escape. Heir, another layer of the twist peeled back. Lyra wasn't just nobility, she was the matriarch's firstborn, destined to rule, exiled as a child for her weak empathy, now reclaimed as a weapon. The surprise deepened her resolve, her white hair whipping as she blasted a door open with a focused, empathic pulse. They commandeered a sleek interceptor from an abandoned bay, engines roaring to life as clan ships closed in. Vexar appeared at the viewport, pounding on the glass, his face a mask of fractured loyalty. You can't run forever, sister, the bond ties us all. But Lyra met his gaze, violet eyes steady. Then we'll break it or you. Kai punched the throttle, the ship blasting free into the void, dodging debris and fire. The twist left them breathless, the galaxy shifting under their feet, family turned foe, love turned liability, but also power unlocked in unexpected ways. As stars streaked past, Lyra collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, hand over her heart where the bond thrummed wildly. He's in here, Kai, part of us now. Surprise lingered in her voice, but so did determination. Kai reached for her, their fingers intertwining. Then we use it against him. Humans are good at turning curses into weapons. The interceptor hurtled toward Epsilon Prime, but Vexar's presence echoed faintly, a ghostly third in their link. Watching, waiting. Drama coiled tighter, the twist reshaping everything. What other secrets did the matriarch hold? Could they sever the unwanted tie without losing each other? The journey stretched, tense silences broken by strategy talks. Lyra meditated, probing the bond's depths, discovering hidden facets, shared visions, amplified strengths, but also Vexar's insidious whispers, trying to erode their trust. One night, as alarms blared from distant pursuers, she woke Kai with an urgent kiss, empathy shielding them from the intrusion. He's coming, she warned, with Mother's fleet. Kai pulled her close, the bond a fortress. Let them, we've got surprises of our own. Epsilon Prime loomed, a fortress world of rebels and tech wizards, where alliances could be forged against the clans, docking under false codes. They sought experts in psychic tech, but Vexar's influence manifested in hallucinations. Kai seeing Lyra as the enemy, Lyra feeling Kai's doubt. The twist tested them, but love prevailed, each intimate reassurance strengthening their core. In a hidden lab, a wizened alien scanned their bond. Intriguing, the parasite can be excised, but at a cost. Surprise in his tone, it might unravel the good with the bad. Drama hung heavy as they weighed the risk, Vexar's laughter echoing in their minds. Yet HFY spirit shone. Do it, Kai said. Freedom's worth the fight. The procedure began, machines humming, Lyra's hand in his. Pain lanced through the bond, visions flashing, childhood memories of Lyra and Vexar playing under Zerathia's moons, corrupted by the matriarch's ambition. Surprise climaxed, Vexar wasn't fully lost, buried deep was a flicker of the brother she knew, pleading for release. Lyra channeled empathy one last time, not to harm, but to heal, severing the tie while offering redemption. The bond snapped clean, Vexar's presence vanishing like a snuffed star, but the twist's echo remained. In the void, his ship altered course, not pursuing, but fleeing, perhaps to rethink, perhaps to ally. Lyra slumped, exhausted but free. He's changed. Kai held her, the pure bond now theirs alone. So have we. As they emerged into Epsilon's bustling streets, new paths opened, rebel networks buzzing with tales of the human who tamed a Zerathian heart. But the matriarch's shadow loomed, her fleet massing. The twist had surprised them, but it forged them stronger, ready for the wars ahead. Epsilon Prime's sprawling undercity sprawled like a living organism. veins of neon-lit tunnels pulsing with the heartbeat of rebels, hackers, and exiles who thrived in the shadows of towering spires that scraped the planet's stormy skies. Kai and Lyra emerged from the psychic tech lab, the air buzzing with the aftershocks of the procedure, a faint hum in their bond that felt cleaner, purer, like a river cleared of debris. Vexar's ghostly presence was gone, severed like a rotten root, but the echoes of his fleeting plea for redemption lingered in Lyra's mind, a bittersweet whisper that softened her violet eyes as they navigated the crowded walkways. Kai squeezed her hand, his calloused fingers intertwining with hers, grounding her in the present. He's out there, rethinking everything. Maybe that's our win for now. She nodded, her white hair swaying gently, the pointed tips of her ears catching the flickering lights from holographic ads, hawking everything from neural implants to black market star charts. The rebel networks had embraced them like long-lost kin, tales of the human who bonded with a Zerathian heir spreading through the Undercity like wildfire. A grizzled operative named Zara, ironically sharing a name from Lyra's cultural lore, had pulled strings to get them a secure bunker suite, buried deep in the fortified heart of the Resistance hub. Matriarch's fleet is mobilizing, Zara had warned earlier, her holographic briefing projecting star maps dotted with red threat icons. They're not just hunting, they're conquering. Your bond could be the key to rallying allies. Drama hung heavy in those words, the weight of an interstellar war pressing down, but in the quiet of their new quarters, Kai and Lyra found a fragile bubble of normalcy, or as normal as it got for human spacer and his alien love. The bunker suite was Spartan but cozy, a low-ceilinged room with a reinforced bed alcove, a compact galley for synth food, and a view screen mimicking starry vistas to combat the claustrophobia. Lyra shed her cloak, stretching languidly in the dim glow, her curvaceous form casting elegant shadows that made Kai's pulse quicken despite the exhaustion. "Feels like home," she said softly, a hint of humor in her tone as she eyed the lumpy mattress. If home was a fortified cave designed by paranoid engineers. Kai chuckled, pulling off his boots and collapsing onto the bed with a groan. Better than the freighter. At least here, no creepy AI watching our every move. But as he said it, a hidden panel in the wall beeped, deploying a surveillance drone that hovered innocently. Security check initiated. It chirped, "Please state your intentions." Awkwardness descended like a sudden meteor shower. Lyra froze mid-stretch, her arms raised, the thin fabric of her tunic clinging in ways that highlighted every curve, while Kai bolted upright, half undressed, his pants halfway down, the drone's lens word scanning them both. Intentions, rest and recuperation, Kai stammered, yanking his pants back up with one hand while shooing the drone with the other. Lyra burst into laughter, covering her mouth, but her empathy amplified the moment, flooding Kai with waves of her amusement mixed with a flush of embarrassment. Humans and their tech faux pas. She teased, stepping forward to bat the drone away gently. It bobbed apologetically. Scan complete. Enjoy your stay. Reminder, bunker protocols prohibit excessive noise. With that, it retreated into the wall, leaving them in stunned silence before dissolving into shared giggles. The humor eased the tension, but drama lurked beneath, coiling tighter as alerts pinged on the view screen, Matriarch's vanguard ships probing Epsilon's defenses, skirmishes lighting up the outer rings. "They're getting bolder," Lyra murmured, settling beside Kai on the bed, her body curling into his side like it belonged there. He wrapped an arm around her, inhaling her stardust scent, but the bond let him feel her worry, a storm brewing in her core. "If Vexar turns, if he joins us..." Her voice trailed off, the possibility heightening the stakes. Kai kissed her forehead. "One crisis at a time. Right now, we rally these rebels." But awkwardness struck again when Zara calmed in unannounced, her hologram flickering to life in the room center, just as Lyra's hand had begun wandering under Kai's shirt, tracing the lines of his abs with empathic warmth. "Am I interrupting?" Zara's projection asked, eyebrow arched, her tough exterior cracking with a smirk. Kai yanked his shirt down, face heating, while Lyra sat up straight, her luminous skin flushing pink. Strategy session?" Kai quipped, trying to play it off. But the humor fell flat, in the dramatic undercurrent of impending war. Zara laughed outright. "Save the bonding for later. Lovebirds, we've got a council meeting. The elders want a demo of your powers. Think you can wow them without glowing too much?" Lyra's ears twitched in embarrassment, but she nodded, the awkward exchange underscoring their vulnerability, heroes in the making, yet still fumbling like any couple thrust into the spotlight. The council chamber was a cavernous hall carved from Epsilon's bedrock, filled with a motley assembly of alien species, hulking brutes from the Orion Arm, sleek androids with glowing circuits, and ethereal beings not unlike Zerathians, all united against tyrannies like the matriarchs. Drama intensified as Kai and Lyra entered, heads turning, whispers rippling like waves. The bonded pair, someone murmured, human fire and Zerathian soul. An elder, a wizened tentacled being named Quor, slammed a gavel-like appendage. Demonstrate this bond. Prove it's the weapon we need. Lyra glanced at Kai, empathy linking their nerves, and they stepped forward, hands joined. What followed was a display of amplified power. Lyra channeling empathy through Kai, projecting waves that disoriented a volunteer enemy drone, while Kai's human ingenuity directed the energy like a laser, shattering holographic targets with precision. The crowd gasped, applause building, but awkwardness crashed in when the bond overcharged, Lyra's glow intensifying, her body arching as if in ecstasy, empathy flooding the room with unintended waves of arousal. Council members shifted uncomfortably, a burly alien clearing his throat loudly, while an android circuit sparked in confusion. Is this part of the demo? Quor asked, voice strained. Kai, feeling the shared heat, pulled back abruptly, face red. Side effect, working on it. Humor saved the moment as Zara snorted from the sidelines. At least it's effective, enemies too distracted to fight. Laughter rippled through the hall, easing the drama. But the matriarch scout struck then, a sudden breach alarm blaring, red light strobing. Incoming raid, someone shouted. Chaos erupted, rebels scrambling for weapons as clan infiltrators burst through vents, energy blades humming. Drama heightened to a fever pitch, Kai and Lyra at the center, bond flaring to life amid the fray. He grabbed a fallen rifle, firing precise shots while Lyra's empathy staggered attackers, making them clutch heads in confusion. But awkwardness woven in, an infiltrator lunged at Lyra, blade raised, only for Kai to tackle him, rolling into a pile of council chairs that toppled like dominoes, pinning them both in a heap. Get off me, human, the Zerathian snarled, but Kai quipped through gritted teeth, not the bonding I had in mind. Lyra blasted the foe unconscious, helping Kai up with a roll of her eyes. Timing, always your strong suit. The battle raged, drama unfolding in close-quarters combat, lasers scorching walls, empathic waves clashing with clan shields. Kai's human strength shone, punching through armor, dodging with spacer agility, while Lyra's grace turned the tide, her white hair whipping as she levitated debris to shield allies. Humor peeked through in absurd moments, an android ally short-circuiting from an empathy overload, sparking and dancing erratically like a malfunctioning toy, drawing unintended laughs amid the tension, rebooting affection protocols. It stuttered, blasting a clan soldier by accident. As the raid intensified, Vexar's ship signature appeared on scans, not attacking, but hovering at the edge, a wild card in the drama. He's here, Lyra breathed, empathy sensing his conflict, a brother torn between blood and redemption. Awkward confrontation loomed, mid-battle, Vexar's hologram projected into the hall, his scarred face flickering. Sister, I felt the severance. It freed me. The room froze. Weapons trained, but Lyra stepped forward, bond with Kai bolstering her. Join us, Vexar, end this. He hesitated, drama peaking, then his ship fired, not at the rebels, but at the matriarch's incoming reinforcements, lasers blooming in the void like fireworks. Surprise alliance formed, Vexar docking amid cheers and wary glances. Stepping out, he faced Lyra, the awkwardness palpable, siblings reunited under fire, his eyes mirroring hers but hardened by years of manipulation. I was wrong, he admitted, voice cracking. Kai clapped his shoulder, humor diffusing the tension. Welcome to the family, just don't crash our dates. Vexar blinked, unaccustomed to levity, but a faint smile broke through. With Vexar's intel, the rebels repelled the raid. Drama cresting in a final push, coordinated strikes shattering clan vessels, debris raining like meteors. In the aftermath, the council pledged full support, the bond hailed as a beacon, but awkwardness lingered in private, Vexar joining their suite for debrief, interrupting a tender moment between Kai and Lyra. Bad timing runs in the family? Kai joked, pulling on a shirt. Vexar averted his eyes, mumbling apologies, the humor bonding them awkwardly as siblings and savior. As night fell on Epsilon, simulated by dimming lights, the trio plotted next moves, drama building toward the matriarch's core worlds. Lyra leaned on Kai, her glow soft, while Vexar shared guarded stories of their childhood. Humor in his attempts at human slang, this HFY thing, it's contagious. Kai laughed. Stick around, you'll see. Yet shadows deepened. Spies reported the matriarch's ultimate weapon, a empathy nullifier that could sever bonds galaxy-wide. Drama heightened, awkward alliances tested, but with humor as their shield. They forged ahead, unbreakable. The following days blurred in preparations, training sessions where Lyra taught Vexar to reclaim his empathy. Awkward at first as suppressed emotions surfaced in bursts, tears during a simulation, laughter at a misfired joke, Kai mediated, his human straightforwardness cutting through. Feel it, don't fight it, he advised, humor in Vexar's fumbling, like hugging a supernova. A supply run turned dramatic when clan ambushes hit the markets, forcing a chase through Epsilon's undercity mazes. Kai piloted a hover skimmer, Lyra and Vexar blasting pursuers. Awkward when Vexar accidentally empathically linked with a foe, feeling his fear. He's just a kid. Vexar yelled, hesitating, Kai swerved. Then stun him family therapy later. They escaped, laden with gear, but the incident heightened drama, Vexar's redemption arc teetering, his loyalty questioned by rebels. In a heated council debate, accusations flew. Traitor's blood, one shouted. Awkward defense from Lyra. He's changed, feel it. Her empathy demonstration backfired slightly, overwhelming a skeptic who blushed furiously. Inappropriate, he sputtered. Humor diffused, Kai quipped. Empathy's a blunt instrument, next time, warn for side effects. As alliances solidified, a gala fundraiser, rebel style, brought levity, dances under holographic stars, Kai twirling Lyra awkwardly, his two left feet contrasting her grace. Vexar watched, attempting a step with Zara, tripping comically. Zerathians weren't made for this. He grumbled, drawing laughs, but drama crashed the party, a matriarch assassin slipping in, poisoning the air. Panic ensued, Kai shielding Lyra, Vexar empathically detecting the toxin source. Awkward heroism, Vexar diving for the device, suit ripping embarrassingly. Not my finest moment, he muttered, deactivating it amid snickers. The night ended in victory, bonds strengthened, literal and figurative. In their suite, Lyra kissed Kai deeply, Vexar discreetly excusing himself. I'll patrol. Humor in his exit, don't break the bunker. As war loomed, these moments, dramatic clashes, awkward mishaps, humorous reprieves wove their tapestry, HFY spirit shining through. As war's thunderous shadow eclipsed Epsilon Prime's simulated horizons, the rebel alliance coalesced into a formidable force, forged in the fires of unlikely unions and unyielding resolve. Kai stood at the command center's viewport, staring out at the assembling fleet, sleek interceptors from the Orion brutes, cloaked drones from the android collectives, and now Vexar's commandeered Zerathian cruiser, its hull still bearing the scars of defection. Lyra was by his side, her hand slipping into his with that familiar empathic warmth, a silent anchor amid the storm. Vexar paced nearby, his once arrogant stride now tempered by humility, exchanging terse nods with Zara as they finalized strike plans. The matriarch's nullifier weapon loomed like a cosmic guillotine, threatening to sever not just bonds but the very essence of empathy that defined Lyra's people and now their shared strength. This ends today, Kai said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of a human vow, unbreakable and fierce. Lyra leaned into him, her violet eyes reflecting the starfield. Together, we rewrite the stars. The assault launched at dawn's artificial break, a symphony of engines roaring to life as the fleet pierced hyperspace toward Zerathia's core worlds. Drama unfolded in the void, matriarch's defenses, a web of orbital fortresses and empathy-jamming fields, lit up like a neural network under attack. Kai piloted their lead vessel, the newly christened Bondbreaker, with Lyra co-piloting. Her empathy guiding evasive maneuvers through minefields of psychic minds that exploded in waves of disorienting doubt. Vexar commanded from his cruiser, his voice crackling over comms, flank the nullifier station, its mother's heart, strike true. Awkward tension simmered in the heat of battle. Vexar's redemption was fresh, his commands met with hesitant affirmations from rebels who'd lost kin to clan raids. But humor flickered through when an android ally's transmission glitched. Affirmative, squishy organic, pew-pew incoming. Kai snorted, dodging a plasma barrage. Even bots got jokes now. The climax built relentlessly as they breached the outer rings, ships trading fire in dazzling displays, lasers carving through shields, debris blooming like metallic flowers. The Bondbreaker took a hit, alarms wailing as hull integrity dipped, but Lyra's empathy stabilized the crew, quelling panic with waves of calm resolve. Feel our unity, she urged, her glow intensifying, the bond with Kai amplifying it across the fleet. They docked at the nullifier station, a colossal spire orbiting Zerathia's glittering capital, its core throbbing with anti-empathic energy that made Lyra wince, like nails on her soul. Boarding parties stormed in, Kai leading with rifle raised, Lyra and Vexar at his flanks. Corridors echoed with clashes, clan guards in shimmering armor charging with blades that hummed like angry bees, rebels countering with brute force and tech hacks. In the heart of the station, they confronted the matriarch herself, a towering figure of pale elegance, her white hair crowned with crystalline thorns, violet eyes mirroring Lyra's but iced with centuries of ambition. "My wayward children," she intoned, her voice a melodic venom that seeped through the bond, trying to erode it. Vexar faltered first, old loyalties tugging, but Lyra stepped forward, empathy clashing against her mother's nullifying aura. "Your reign ends, mother. Empathy isn't a tool, it's freedom." Drama peaked as the matriarch activated the nullifier, a pulse rippling out that severed lesser bonds across the battlefield, ships faltering as crews lost cohesion. Kai felt the tug, a momentary void in his connection to Lyra, but human will bridged it, his hand grabbing hers. "Not us," he growled. "We're more than that." The battle turned personal. Vexar lunged at guards, his blade singing in Redemption's arc, while Kai and Lyra faced the matriarch in a whirlwind of energy. She unleashed psychic lashes, visions of doubt, Kai reliving Earth's lost wars, Lyra her exile, but their bond deflected them, turning pain into power. Humor, improbably, surfaced in the chaos. A guard slipped on spilled coolant, crashing into consoles that sparked comically, buying them seconds. "Even tyrants have bad housekeeping," Kai quipped, firing a stun round that grazed the matriarch's shield. Lyra amplified it, empathy overwhelming her mother's defenses, forcing her to feel the galaxy's collective pain, the oppression she'd wrought. In a surge of unity, Vexar joined, empathy linking with Lyra's to shatter the nullifier core. Explosions rocked the station, alarms blaring evacuation protocols. The matriarch crumpled, not in defeat's rage, but revelation, her eyes widening as true empathy flooded her for the first time in ages. "What have I become?" she whispered, collapsing as guards stood down, bonds reforming in the nullifier's absence. Drama crested in mercy, Lyra knelt, offering a hand. "Redeem yourself, mother. Start anew." But the station's self-destruct triggered, forcing a frantic retreat, Kai scooping Lyra up, Vexar covering their escape as corridors collapsed behind them. They blasted free just as the spire erupted in a silent fireball, the matriarch's flagship turning not to pursue, but to signal surrender. Across Zerathia, clans fractured, empaths rising in waves of reform, inspired by the bonded pair's legend. The fleet regrouped, cheers echoing over comms, but for Kai and Lyra, victory was intimate, back on the Bondbreaker's bridge. They embraced amid the stars, the bond humming with pure, untainted light. Vexar approached, awkward in his newfound freedom. "Sister, brother," he said, the word foreign but sincere. Kai clapped his shoulder. "Family's what we make it. Stick around, Earth's got beaches that'd blow your mind." Vexar smiled faintly, the humor easing years of strain. In the aftermath, peace bloomed like nebulae flowers. Zerathia reformed under a council led by Lyra and Vexar, empathy guiding governance, while Kai became the bridge to human alliances, HFY tales spreading of the man who loved across stars, turning underdogs into legends. They settled on a verdant moon, a haven blending Earth's rugged wilds with Zerathian crystals, their home a cozy dome overlooking twin sunsets. Intimacy deepened in quiet nights, bodies entwined under glowing skies. Whispers of futures, children perhaps, hybrids of human fire and alien grace. One evening, as they lay tangled in sheets, Lyra traced Kai's scars. "You saved more than me, you saved us all." He pulled her close, lips brushing hers. "We did. Humanity's got that spark, but you make it eternal." Their kiss lingered, the bond weaving dreams of endless adventures. Vexar visited often, awkward at first in domestic bliss, but finding his place uncle to the galaxy's new hope. Years blurred into contentment, the matriarch redeemed in exile, mentoring from afar. Kai and Lyra's story became myth, the human who defied cosmos for love, the Zerathian who taught empathy's true power. In the vast tapestry of stars, their light shone brightest, a good ending, not of closure, but infinite possibility. As twin suns dipped, they stood hand in hand, ready for whatever wonders came next, together forever in the galaxy's embrace. The moon's gentle winds carried echoes of their laughter, a testament to bonds unbroken. Friends from Epsilon dropped by Zara with tales of new rebellions quelled peacefully, androids upgrading with empathy modules for humor's sake, Kai grilled Earth-style barbecues, Vexar fumbling with tongs, Lyra's glow illuminating gatherings that bridged worlds. Drama faded into folklore, awkward mishaps into cherished stories, the time Vexar accidentally empathically linked with a pet creature, feeling its hunger pangs during dinner. Never again, he vowed, amid roars of laughter. Their children arrived, twins, boy and girl, with Kai's sturdy build and Lyra's luminous eyes, ears tapered just enough to whisper of heritage. The boy chased stars in toy ships, the girl mediated playground squabbles with innate empathy, like their parents. Vexar observed, pride softening his scars. Kai and Lyra watched from porches, hands linked, the bond an eternal flame. Occasional threats arose, rogue clans, cosmic anomalies, but they faced them as family. HFY spirit amplified by Zerathian soul. One adventure took them back to Tarni's Verge's ruins, now revitalized where it all began. Full circle, Kai murmured, kissing Lyra amid blooming flora, and the best is yet to come. In quiet moments, they reflected, love wasn't just passion's fire, but the steady glow that outlasted storms. The galaxy, once a battlefield, became home, a canvas for their legacy. As stars wheeled overhead, Kai whispered, "Forever yours." Lyra's reply, empathic and true, and beyond, the end wasn't in conclusion but a horizon vast, inviting theirs to explore. In the grand sci-fi saga of humanity's reach, their story stood as beacon, proof that across voids, hearts could unite, conquer, and endure. And that's the end of our epic tale, where Kai and Lyra's bond not only saves worlds but inspires a new era of harmony across the stars. As the author, I personally love how this story celebrates human resilience and the beauty of cross-species love. It's a reminder that true strength comes from connection, not conquest. What do you think? Would you fight alongside Kai? Or bond with an alien like Lyra? Share your thoughts below. Thank you all for watching and joining this adventure. Your likes, subs, comments, and shares mean the world. They fuel us to create even more thrilling HFY stories. Hit that button now and stay tuned for the next one.